Hello, and welcome to Real Menopause Talk. Today, my guest is Pamela Windle, a women's health coach qualified in nutrition and hormones, NLP, hypnotherapy, and so much more. We met up so she could share her story. Hi, Pamela.
Hi.
So nice to meet you.
You too. You too. Where are you in the UK?
In South London.
Okay.
Whereabouts are you?
In sunny Nottingham at the moment.
I would love to know all about you, your background, what you do, how you help women, how you came to the point that you are at, and also where you are on your own menopause journey.
I'm still perimenopause. I'm very close to the end, I think. I'm 55, so I'm a late menopausal woman. I guess when I spoke to my mum passed away last year. She was 96 when she passed away. Yeah, she had me at 45, so I'm the last of 6 children. I asked her about her menopausal journey probably about 6 years ago when my interest started around this topic. And, I wanted to know how it was for her, but she couldn't remember. All she was concerned about was at the point was like, is it happening to you? And I was like, no, everything's fine. I just wanted to know about it, So that's as much as she could remember. But my sisters remember because they're older than me. And they remember mum just being just off and having to be on her own, and they weren't allowed to make noise in the house and things like that. So she had me at 45. She must have been around 55. So I might have been about 10. So just not aware. My sisters were probably teenagers. So more aware of what was happening. So it's quite interesting to know that she obviously entered into menopause much later as well. So my journey is unique, as every woman is. At 46, I was in such a low point of my life, and actually it wasn't anything to do with the menopause or perimenopause. I developed something called chronic fatigue syndrome. And I'd been really fit. I used to be a personal trainer, always ate really well, balanced lifestyle. And so to be struck down with an illness that's uncurable, nobody knows about it, was really devastating at the time. And, this is back in 2012 is when it started. 2013 is when it really took hold. And I was housebound from 2013 for 5 years. I couldn't do all the ordinary things that we take for granted, like having a bath, having a shower, cooking a meal, going shopping, seeing friends, being able to talk and articulate yourself, being able to sit upright, being able to go to work. All of those things that we just take for granted, that we just do every day without even blinking an eyelid. We just wake up every day and we expect that to happen. Well, that all stopped happening.
Just overnight like that, or was there a build-up to it?
It felt like it was one day I was healthy, Pamela, and the next day I was sick. That's what it felt like. I basically came down with a flu virus back in 2012. And when you have flu, you take time out. I had a raging temperature, sweating, the whole lot. And then I started to feel better. And over, I think it's probably about 4 days, I started to feel better. And I was employed at the time. And I was, planning to go back to work the following week. So it would have been 7 days of being off sick. And I just noticed I was getting worse. So instead of getting better, I started to feel really, really ill again. But it's different. I just lost my voice, my throat hurt, I couldn't speak. It was painful to speak, in fact. And so my voice was very shallow. It's almost a whisper because it was just so painful to talk, but not like a sore throat. It was very, very different. And I eventually went back to work, but part-time after being off for a month. So what started off as being a week ended up being off work for an entire month. And then after that, I went back to work part-time for about 3 months because I couldn't cope with working full-time. And then I went back full-time, and then I was off constantly. I'd work for 6 weeks and I'd be off again with some sort of virus. So this kind of happened for the whole of 2013. And then eventually, towards the end of 2013, around the October, I just ended up being off permanently. And I was off for like 8 months in total.
With employment law as it is in the UK, being off for a week, we can all self-certify. Being
Yeah.
on and off, or being off for longer, you will have had to go and see the doctor. How did they respond to this at the time?
Yeah. So my GP, tried to offer some solutions and things. And obviously, it was very stressful because, being off sick on and off, being off for a long period of time. I'm a conscientious person. When I did my degree when I was 40, I had 2 jobs at the time, and a teenager as well, looking after. So I'm really conscientious. And so being off work sick was something that I've never done. And so it's like that mental battle as well, wanting to be at work, wanting to, work and contribute to society, and then knowing that you can't. So the GP at the time kept saying, I think this is ME, and because it kept going on, did some tests, did like a cortisol test, tested my hormones because I was 46 at the time. Said, actually your hormones are really good. There's no stress, your cortisol levels are fine. We'll just see what happened. We think it is ME, but let's see. And eventually, then the whole thing is stressful in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
And work wasn't really helpful at all. At all. It was really, really quite stressful, the whole thing. And my GP eventually then said, well, let's refer you to the chronic fatigue ME clinic here in Nottingham. He referred me. He said he referred me, but then didn't refer me. Yeah.
Because
he felt it was a waste of time.
And in the meantime, he still didn't have a solution for you?
Yeah. He referred me after saying he was going to refer me, then not receiving any letters, and then going back to the GP saying, have you referred me? Oh, no, because, it is a waste of time. And eventually he did refer me after me kind of begging to be referred to the clinic. So I was referred.
I'm sorry that you had that. That is yet another layer of stress that you've already been piling up with work and home life, and this not being in your nature, and the illness itself. To then have the hope of the referral, and then find out that hope hasn't even started along its route. That must have been really difficult.
Yeah, it was really frustrating and frightening at the time, not knowing your body. If suddenly your body isn't able to do the things that you could do ordinarily, yeah, it was hard. It was very frightening, and then the financial impact of not being able to work, how that affected my lifestyle and everything. Yeah, exactly, adding on the stress. It was very stressful.
So when you got the referral, what happened next?
So I got the referral, and to go to an appointment was such a big event. To physically get ready, drive to the appointment, whether to drive to get the taxi, all of those. How do I go and not have such a big effect on my energy just going to an appointment? So all of that, working all that out, constantly working out, how do I not harm myself by doing something like that. So I did actually drive to the appointment, and I can see myself now really weirdly. I did drive, and I met a physiotherapist, and it was great. We're talking about this grading exercise, in terms of doing something rather than not doing something. In the end, I decided I wasn't going to take it up because what I was afraid of, I'd already trained as a hypnotherapist. So I was using all of my kind of tools that I learned as a hypnotherapist and NLP practitioner as well to stay positive. Your mind has a lot to do with your physical body. They're, interconnected, aren't they? And so I decided I didn't want to be part of the clinic because what I feared was that we'd be sat around together, sick people all together, and that would be negative. So I decided I didn't want to be part of that. So that was my choice. But, the GP, he can't make a choice for me. It was quite rightly that I needed to go and make that decision myself. But it was helpful speaking to someone. Mm-hmm. It was helpful to speak to someone and say, this is how I feel. This affects me. I can't do this. And just to be heard by someone that, did offer some support in some ways, but being listened to, you get 10 minutes, if that, in your GP surgery. And so to have someone to listen and understand, because she's obviously heard other stories, and say, oh, yes, that sounds like it's, chronic fatigue, blah, 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 then it was definitely helpful.
How did you then heal yourself to the point you are at now?
Yeah. I didn't own the label chronic fatigue. Yeah. I was always trying to find out why I literally was a well person one day and a sick person the next day. And I wasn't going to accept that this was it, because that's what I was told. This is it. You're going to have this for the rest of your life. Now you're going to develop fibromyalgia. This is it. You're going to be sick like this for the rest of your life. So I never really accepted that. And because of my background, and I went to university much later on, I graduated at 44, and I was still in that learning mindset, and I still am today, constantly learning. And a friend of mine invited me into a Facebook group called The Third Age Woman.
And with Jenny Burrell.
Yes, with Jenny Burrell. You know Jenny Burrell?
I don't know her personally. I've studied under her with Third Age Women as well. Her knowledge is astounding. So
she's amazing.
Jenny Burrell, right. She's brilliant.
Okay, so my dad passed away in 2014. I was with my sisters quite a lot, and at the time, my eldest sister, who's 4 years older than me, started having hot flushes. And I remember at the time thinking it was almost like a cartoon moment, really. I remember looking at it thinking, oh my God, you have got hot flushes. That's like the menopause. Holy moly. You're 4 years older than me. That means that's not far away from me. I'm backtracking, actually, before I was introduced to Jenny. I started reading about the menopause, and I started reading Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz from America. I bought his book, and I'm thinking, oh, well, how come this information isn't readily available? How come we don't know this stuff, that your liver and your colon has a lot to do with this transitioning, and women don't have to suffer. And obviously my sister was under a lot of stress because her dad had just died. So for her, it brought on symptoms of the menopause. See, she was still perimenopause actually at that time. Mm-hmm. But the hot flushes, obviously now I know, was because of the stress that she was under with my dad passing away. And so then 2015, a friend said, come into this group. So I started reading about it, really interested. I wanted to learn about it for me. My curiosity was, well, if I learn about it, can I have a better transition into this phase of life? So friend invited me into the third aid group, and then obviously I joined the actual program, and I did the third aid certification. I literally did it laying down because I was ill, because I'd got chronic fatigue. But I did it. And it was great. I was really curious and, I learned a lot on the course. And I decided I was going to combine that with my hypnotherapy as well, NLP. And I started seeing the odd client and, they were starting to feel better. But I was still unwell. So I was seeing clients in person, and after one appointment, I'd be on the floor, laying down on the floor because I just didn't have the energy, like gather my energy up for the next person. And I wasn't seeing that many people, but, I was doing something. And obviously, that the third age one, I don't know which one you did.
I did the 2019 version, which they've since updated to the evergreen version. But if you're in 2015, presumably you did the original.
Yes, so I did the original with Dr. Jessica Drummond was in it.
She's terrific as well. Yeah.
She's amazing. So obviously I was on Dr. Jessica Drummond's mailing list, and she was talking about, functional nutrition. I'd never heard of functional nutrition. She was talking about her women's health coaching qualifications. I was really, really intrigued about that. I met Jessica at Jenny's conference. What was it called? The
Women on Fire?
Women on Fire, that's it, yeah. I think it might have been 2016 at this point. So I met Jessica there and we had a conversation. Anyway, I decided that I wanted to take on her women's health coaching qualification. And so that started, funny enough, on my dad's second anniversary of 2016. I just thought, is this coincidence? It started on the 5th of May, 2016, right? Of any other day, it was the 4th or the 3rd, but it was the 5th, the day my dad passed away 2 years ago. And at the time, I'd sold my house. I was living in a rent accommodation because I was ill, and I had cash, but I was living off the cash and money wasn't coming in because I was ill. And I decided that I wanted to do the qualification. It was completely out of my price range, Jessica's course, but I decided I wanted to do it, and I'd pay on a monthly subscription instead of paying out the money in one go. And I have to say, it saved my life, basically. So I became Jessica's patient as well in the August of that year. And through the diagnostic tools that I now use myself in my clinic, the Dutch test, the stool test, the organic acid test, I did all those myself as a patient of Jessica's. And so actually hormonally, yes, I was in perimenopause, but my hormones wasn't in a place where I would be struggling like I was. It wasn't perimenopause. If I was 10 years younger, I perhaps would have not felt as bad because your hormones are slightly higher, but it wasn't that was the cause of it. So I knew, it wasn't adrenals, I was depleted hormonally. And so there was some gut health issues, my immune health was struggling a little bit. There was some absorption issues as well. And I worked with Jessica as a patient for 4 months. And then she said to me, look, with all this work that we're doing, you should be feeling much better than you are. So I think there's something else going on. I think we need to look at your blood. So we looked at my blood, and the first thing we looked at was something called Epstein-Barr virus.
Yes, I've had it myself.
Wow. Yes. My antibodies were raised.
Goodness.
And so it was that was causing the fatigue. So my body was just limping along as if I'd got flu, but it was the antibodies that were raised that was causing that. So we treat my nutrition, everything, and slowly, my energy levels incrementally just improved and got better and better, to the point that in 2018, I went to my GP and I said, can you amend my medical records to say I no longer have chronic fatigue syndrome?
That is fantastic news. So you basically healed yourself with Jessica, but with food, supplements, everything natural.
Yeah, lifestyle. And obviously, because we did the diagnostic tests, we knew exactly what was wrong. Mm-hmm. And So then my certification, it was meant to be a year, took 2 years. Functional nutrition side of it, the coaching side of it with Jessica. So 2018 is actually when I fully qualified as a women's health coach under her umbrella. And having had that journey of illness and despair and confusion and hope, feeling hopeless at times, but also feeling hopeful, I'm now 55. My perimenopausal journey, I 100% believe that if I hadn't had been sick, if I hadn't done the work on healing myself from Epstein-Barr, my journey through this would be horrendous.
Yeah, I can imagine. Certainly putting down foundations, even though it might have been slightly unwittingly,
Yeah.
it is essential. And Epstein-Barr, it appears, is not often doctor's first port of call. I remember, certainly for me, I wasn't half as bad as you were, but the thought of going on a family walk was terrifying because I didn't know if I could make it up the hill. I felt at 81 when I was 41. It was hideous. It's a beast of a virus. And when it goes, the psychological change from now I know deep down that going on a walk, I could walk for 2, 4, 5 hours. But the thought of it, I still have residual, oh, but what if I can't do it? So recovering from that in itself is something else. God, how extraordinary.
Yeah. So interestingly, just as you say that, is because when we tweaked my diet, when we knew that it was Epstein-Barr and it was a blood issue, we tweaked my diet, really changed it on the head, the supplements changed. It was literally overnight, right, okay, this is what we're doing now. And Jessica said to me, I had to do like this fast. So that notion of you starve a virus and you feed a flu.
Yes.
Well, we starved the virus. So I did a fast for 12 days. It was not totally without food. So some of it was with food and then some of it was just with like juices and then targeted supplements. And Jessica said to me, she said, if you've got this right, by day 13, you're going to feel different. You're going to notice a real change in your energy. And I remember I sat in the dark garden day 12 and I was thinking, oh my God, I was petrified. I was petrified of day 13, to wake up day 13, that I would feel, wow. I was so scared about feeling well, which was really bizarre because that's all I wanted to do was feel well. But because I'd been unwell for such a long time, I'd forgotten who I was.
Mm-hmm.
I'd forgotten who Pamela was, a well Pamela. And just the psychology of that, that how you spoke there about still now you're having that fear about, can I do this and can I not? It's just interesting, the psychology of it all. When you've really, really struggled with fatigue and people don't really understand how that feels. And it's hard to express yourself as well. So I feel like I'm in a club with you now,
Yes. Oh, a fellow recoverer, which is terrific. From your recovery and throughout that process, it sounds like even more was sparked to help other women. Do you have perimenopausal, menopausal women coming to you specifically for that set of symptoms? How do you help them?
Yes, I have women that come see me for many symptoms, really. Women who struggle with energy problems, so with fatigue, particularly in the morning, or mid-afternoon, definitely. Women who struggle to lose weight, sleep problems, libido problems, mood problems as well. Hair loss is a big one as well. So I do see women from mid-30s, really. So obviously there are imbalances for women who are younger that can present as perimenopausal symptoms, but actually when we test, it isn't that. It's an imbalance of hormones, and we can tweak that. And then also for women in the full flows of the menopause and postmenopausal women. I've had women who are postmenopause that struggle with sleep. And when we actually make a difference to what they eat, when they eat, how they eat, adding the targeted supplements in, they're able to sleep again, and it's great to see. How do I work with these women when they come in? Well, I work online actually, so they don't physically come see me. Sometimes in Nottingham I do see some people here face to face, but generally it's online. So first of all, I want to know about them. How did they get to where they are today? By the time we get to our 40s and 50s, we've been through a lot. So I want to know what's happened to you, what's your medical history, what stresses have you been through. I even want to know about your conception. What happened at your conception? What was your mum's health like? What foods did you have as a child? What childhood illnesses did you have as well? So I want to know about that. And then obviously I want to know about where do they see themselves? How do they see themselves in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from today? What does that look like? So we want to paint a picture of, that optimal health, that woman that's thriving and flourishing in X amount of years. And so then we then make a plan. So depending on what is the main issue, sometimes we start off with diagnostic testing. Sometimes we do. So the Dutch test is one of the tests I do, which is a hormonal profiling test, the urine test, which I really love because it tells me about where your hormones are. So the main ones, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. But it also tells me about how your body's metabolizing that, whether you're at risk of developing an estrogen-driven cancer, whether your estrogen is going down the wrong pathway. I can see whether you've got PCOS. A lot of women actually come in midlife that are on the border of PCOS and never known before, or a doctor said, oh, well, you might do, but nothing has ever happened to that. No other information about that. And that has a lot to do with her ability to lose weight. It also affects the immune system as well. So we want to support her in that area as well. And then it tells me about her adrenal glands. How healthy is her adrenal glands? How healthy is her ability to absorb nutrients? It does tell me a little bit about that, even though it's hormonal. And how healthy is her thyroid as well? So there are little indications from that particular test. And the other test I love doing is a stool test, because the stool test looks at, your gallbladder needs to be healthy. What's your gut microbiome doing? Do you have leaky gut? Are you absorbing your fats, proteins, and carbohydrates? And all of that has an impact on us as women. It has an impact on our hormones and our bone health, heart health, all sorts of things. So sometimes we do start off with those tests, and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we just say, okay, we're just going to support you nutritionally. We're going to look at absorption first. We're going to start calming the nervous system down, and that might be through food, it might be through lifestyle, it might be through coaching, it might be through hypnotherapy and NLP as well. And so it really depends on the woman who's sat in front of me. Many women actually have been to other practitioners and they've spent money on this, spent money on that, and it doesn't work. And so often with those clients, I'm just saying, okay, let's just calm everything down and let's just work together, just doing the foundational stuff, and let's see what happens. And if things don't change, then we can go up a little bit and do some diagnostic tools. So the tests are great because, like myself, my recovery was quick. We tested, we knew exactly what was going on. So they do have a place, but it's not always the first place to start, I think.
What would be your 3 key tips to anybody who's going through perimenopause? I know it is different for every single woman, but if you had 3 foundational tips, what would they be?
Number 1, I think, would be balancing blood sugar, because that has such an impact on your energy, brain function, sleep, hot flushes, and the night sweats, the heart palpitations, everything. It's such a simple thing, but it makes a huge difference. So balancing your blood sugar levels is obviously a personal thing, but ultimately we want to make sure that we're eating good quality fats daily. Our body needs fats. Unfortunately, the slimming industry told us that fats were bad, but actually it's essential. Fats are the backbone of our sex hormones. We need fats. So we need to add those fats into our diet, and coconut oil, avocado oil, olive oil, all your essential oils like omega-3s and omega-6, like the balance of them too. We need in our diet on a daily basis. For some clients, I even say, on your vegetables, just add some butter, drizzle some olive oil onto your salads and your meals. So just adding that in a way that's functional, you're not going out of your way, you're just part of your life. And it just helps to regulate your blood sugar levels and support the hormones. The other one is including protein in that. So good quality protein in all of your meals, and I find that a lot of women, unfortunately, diets are quite high in carbohydrates, quite rich in carbs. We're kind of the sandwich generation or carb generation. We have carbs for breakfast, we have carbs for lunch and carbs for dinner. And, when our hormones are changing, as estrogen and progesterone and testosterone are kind of going down, then other hormones rise, such as cortisol and insulin, and we just can't cope with that anymore. So good quality fats and good quality proteins, making sure that we're chewing our food well. It's really, really important. First place to start, really, when we're talking about absorption, is about chewing. Just sitting, eating mindfully, not watching the news, not in front of the computer. Yeah, so those two, and then fiber, vegetables, 7 to 8 portions of veggies, at least 1 or 2 portions of fruit a day. And so I would definitely say that would help to balance your blood sugar levels. Mm-hmm. The other thing I would say is, and so many, so I'm like, my mind's going, let's say this. The other thing I would say for perimenopause, if you're a perimenopause woman, then start learning about your body, start learning about the hormones, start learning about your menstrual cycle. It's really important because your menstrual cycle will give you clues about what's going on. Are you ovulating? Are you not ovulating? So obviously in the perimenopausal phase, our estrogen levels are going crazy. They're high, they're low, they're high, they're low. We're ovulating, we're not ovulating. And there are clues in your body that are showing up daily that you can start to understand where you are. So one of the things I love is doing your basal body temperature. So understanding your basal body temperature, tracking that along with your menstrual cycle gives you clues about where you are within your cycle. So are you in the follicular phase, at the beginning of the period? Are you ovulating? Are you in the luteal phase, towards the end of the menstrual cycle? So if you understand that, you'll understand if you were struggling with anxiety at the end of your cycle, then there's a sure chance that your progesterone levels are a little bit low. If your libido in the middle of your cycle, where you should be ovulating, if it's not there at all, then we know there's an imbalance there of estrogen, because estrogen has to be so high to trigger that ovulation process, which means that you feel aroused at that middle of your cycle. If your energy levels are really rock bottom around your period, then we know that your adrenal glands are struggling slightly. So these are little telltale signs that your body is showing up and telling you, actually, something isn't right. And I think for us as women, we generally go, oh, I'm just going to go over this bit, wait till my period's over, and I'm just going to go back to my normal life and forget it until the next cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But actually, yeah, exactly. And so by documenting, I'm a bit of a geek, so I like data. So by documenting, and this, well, first of all, learning about your hormones. Second, learn how to read your basal body temperature, and then document at least 3 cycles. Understanding what's going on in your body is so powerful, such a powerful tool. I love it.
I'm intrigued already because all the things that you're saying, I'm like, oh yes, oh yeah, I need to come and see you. I need to book appointment. Body temperature, I've heard of that being tracked for women who are trying to get pregnant, certainly. How does that help you diagnose what is going on with somebody?
Yeah, so your basal body temperature, so your true body temperature is that when you wake in the morning. So you have to take it roughly about the same time every morning. And you take it as soon as you wake up, before you speak to anybody, before you go to the bathroom, before you do anything. So next to you in bed is when you take it. So your basal body temperature changes with your hormones. I mean, women need to know this information because this is crucial. The menstrual cycle has 4 phases. So you have the bleed, so day 1, and most women bleed for about 5 days, but some for 7. So that's the bleed. So I don't know if you know the idea that there are 4 seasons of the menstrual cycle.
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. So that the bleed is the winter, yeah, and then you have the spring, and that is from day 7 to day 14, day 13, 14, and that's the spring. And so in that phase, estrogen's rising. And then you have ovulation, which is day 14 or 15, depending where you are, and that is summer. And then you have the luteal phase, which is autumn. But autumn splits into 2 phases. So it's like the late summer, like in Indian summer, like we've had this year. And then we have autumn, and that's luteal phase. And that carries on until your next cycle. So in the winter, your basal body temperature should be around 36.1 to 36.5. Okay, so every day, every morning, you're going to see like little fluctuation of your basal body temperature being between 36.1, 36.5, up until ovulation. When you get to ovulation, so this is exactly the same as a woman that would be in, trying to conceive. When you get to ovulation, the day after, you get a spike in your body temperature. So we know actually in that winter and the spring, your body's working as it should do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We know that your estrogen's been high enough so that it sent a signal to your brain to produce luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormones to cause ovulation. And then ovulation happens, you have a spike in your body, in your basal body temperature. And then after that, your body temperature remains high. So it remains about 36.5 up to 36.9, maybe even 36, maybe even 37. And it stays high in the autumn phase because that's progesterone's job. Progesterone's job is to keep it high, and progesterone's job is to keep us balanced, to keep our mood on track, help us with sleep. And then you get to day 28. The following day should be day 1. You wake up to your body temperature drops. That's the day you start your period. So your body temperature's dropping, and that's the day you start your period, which is day 1. So by tracking your body temperature, you know where you are through your cycle. 1, your estrogen is doing what it's meant to do, and your progesterone is doing what it's meant to do on the other side. The other thing it also tells us, if the numbers are lower than 36.1 in the winter and the spring, also is an indication of thyroid issues.
And if you don't get that spike, then you're not ovulating.
But the first time my cycle was longer than my 26 days, I just flew off to India to meet my daughter out there. She was working out there. She's a yoga teacher as well. I don't know whether it was because of the time, time zone changes and the flight and everything, but my cycle was, I think it was about 40 days, which was really interesting because I knew, because I'd been tracking what should have happened. My body temperature did drop, but the period didn't happen. So that was interesting. So I knew I wasn't pregnant. I knew it was a hormonal shift, but I dropped back down into follicular phase, but I wasn't pregnant, because when you're pregnant, your body temperature stays high because that's progesterone's job to keep it high.
Really useful information. Is there anything you would like to add?
The thing that I am passionate about is really helping women to understand themselves. And I think because right now there's a lot of information out there, isn't there, about perimenopause and menopause. And I think sometimes it is one-sided. I think as women, we, as health professionals, we have a duty of care for those women that are, listening to us, learning from us, to understand that actually, one, they have complete control over their bodies. They're not sick and there's nothing wrong with them. And they can start with one thing and that one thing can grow. And, in terms of recreating a balance with themselves, and also that it works. It works. And that no matter how bad they're feeling, and I know from how I felt, how sick I felt, that my body healed when it was, when we added the right things in. I think that women need to understand, if they are going to take HRT, they too need to work on their liver. They too need to work on their colon. They too need to balance their blood sugar levels. It's not that you take HRT and I carry on as living my life that I did before this. In actual fact, you perhaps need to do it even more so. Do all the natural things, add HRT, if you really need it. And some women do really need it.
Thank you so much, Pamela. Where can people find you?
So you can find me on my website is www.smarterchange.co.uk, and on social media, I'm really active on Instagram, which is Pamela Windle Hormone Coach, and I have to apologise because on every social media I've got a different name and I need to change that. So that's my name for Instagram. On Facebook, it's Pamela Windle Health and Vitality. And then on LinkedIn, it is Pamela Windle, or actually Pamela Ann Windle. So yes, there's like various names. But if you just put Pamela Windle into Google, I'm sure I would come up in some way.
We can find you. Fantastic.
You will.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much indeed for your time. It has been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Oh, thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks, Pamela. Bye.
Bye.
You can go to our website, realmenopausetalk.com, for the link to Pamela's upcoming course and details on how to find her. Subscribe to our newsletter for the latest updates and follow us on the podcast app. Thank you once again for listening, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.